Run.
Man, I was genuinely hoping for this movie to be great. I love the Alien series, and the xenomorph might just be one of the coolest creatures ever to be created. But somehow, the Alien movies seem to be perpetually stuck in bad movie hell. So when chatter about this movie started, it sounded amazing. Back to basics Alien movie?
I'm in.
Bringing it back to the dark and moody origins that we got in the original?
I like it.
Practical effects?
Hell yeah!
Then I watched the movie and it was... okay. Not awful or bad, but also not the slam dunk I was led to believe it was by all the critics. If you want to sum this movie up, it's this. Decent setup, awful payoff. That's it. Thanks for watching my review. Anywho, like I said, I was rooting for this movie to be awesome. It had potential to be great. All the ingredients were there. But once the movie got going, it was one bad decision after another. It's so frustrating reviewing a movie like this. It's not bogged down by 2024 modern audiences bullshit or politics. It's bogged down by genuinely baffling movie making decisions. The setup was decent. You've got a bunch of young mine workers. They're all stuck on this planet, resigned to a life of barely scraping by. And to make things even more depressing, the planet is perpetually dark. Rain is our main character. She's one of the young miners. Her brother is Andy, an older model android who loves his dad jokes. He's a bit fragile and gets into trouble quite often. After Rain gets rejected from going off-world because of corporate greed, she gets an offer to go raid an abandoned space station in nearby orbit. It has cryo modules that will let them get away from their current life. They need Andy to interface with the station's operating system, Mother. They get onto the space station, and that's when things start to go badly for them. The setup was already pretty flimsy, with a whole abandoned space station floating in nearby orbit, and Weyland-Yutani, a company we've come to know as ruthlessly evil and greedy, just lets it float out there. It gets more baffling when you realize how important that space station is later on. The miners having a fully functioning spaceship that they can just take off with, as and when they please, is also a huge plot convenience. How did they get a whole spaceship when they can barely scrape by?
Don't know, don't care. How's that?
The first while on the space station is pretty decent too. It sets up this abandoned station with its eerie atmosphere and dingy, claustrophobic corridors. It's starting to feel like the original. They even designed the interfaces and tech to look very similar to the original. Okay.
Run.
And then, things start to go wrong for both the characters and for us once the facehuggers show up. Instead of the established alien lore where they take time to gestate, they now turn in a matter of minutes for the sake of plot convenience. And speaking of plot conveniences, oh boy, are there a lot of them in this movie, but we'll get to that. We then get introduced to Rook, digitally played by the late great Ian Holm. Holy uncanny valley Batman, this was a bad decision. There was no reason to use him except for the nostalgia factor. The first movie had him, but the second one had an updated android in Lance Henriksen, and the later ones had David. And apart from the creep factor of bringing dead actors back through this uncanny bullshit, it also feels very wrong.
Wrong! It is wrong!
On top of that, they also tried to connect this movie to the original by showing us that they captured said original xenomorph. Remember the one from the OG movie? The one blasted out the rocket boosters of the ship by Ripley? Yeah, that one. They found it amongst the nicely drifting together debris of the Nostromo. Remember the ship that was blasted into oblivion by Ripley? Yeah, that one. If pieces of a ship are blown apart in space, won't they keep drifting apart over years? Anywho, they mostly ignore the newer films in this one, except for the worst element from them, the black goo. Remember that stuff that disintegrated the engineer? Turned humans into this, and this, birthed this hybrid thingy, that turned into this thing, and which destroyed a whole engineer civilization. The stuff that was stored on a ship on its way to Earth to go wipe out humanity? Yeah, that stuff is back, and now it's apparently the cure for humanity, and the link to its next evolution. It is that magical goo that can do whatever the script needs it to do. Rook tries to explain that humans suck and get sick working in mines, blah blah blah, and they need to get better. The irony of this is it's coming from a robot that can replace human workers in the mines without disease or getting old. Anywho, and then for no real reason, they decided to nostalgia bait so hard that it hurt. It was painful to watch. Just stuffed in there for no reason, apart from the obvious nostalgia baiting. None of it made sense in the main plot of the movie and kept pulling you out of the story. Remember in Alien, when Ripley was already in her PJs but had to get into a spacesuit to deal with the alien? Yeah, Rain has to do the same thing here. Remember in Aliens when Bishop said this?
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Yeah, Andy says it too.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Remember in Aliens when Bishop was ripped into pieces, covered in the white blood? Yeah, Rook looks the same. Remember that one cool shot from Alien 3 with the xenomorph getting close to Ripley? Yeah, we've got it in here too. Remember in Aliens when Ripley shouted,
"Get away from her, you bitch!"
Yeah, the emotionless android now says it too.
Get away from her, you bitch.
Remember in Aliens when Hicks looked into the ceiling and saw the aliens crawling toward him? Happens here too. Remember in Aliens when Hudson screamed? Or in Alien Resurrection when Jonah screamed it? Yeah, Rain does it here too. Remember when they had those cool blue laser lights in the alien ship in the original movie? Yeah, let's just stick some of those lights in the human ship. Nostalgia, man. Remember when they had those awesome sentry guns in Aliens and Hudson kept shouting out the amount of ammo left because he was nervous as fuck, and then it almost ran out of ammo just before the aliens gave up? Yeah, we'll just have some random assault rifle with 10 times more rounds than the assault rifles from previous movies.
Lean into it. Alright, out will kick some.
You've just got one mag. That's it. 450 rounds.
And we'll have Andy, the emotionless android, doing his best Hudson impersonation.
20%!
Remember that famous line that Ash gives in the original Alien movie when he knows what Ripley is up against after studying it?
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
Yeah. Now Rook says the exact same line to Rain for no apparent reason.
I can't lie about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
Even the name of the movie is another pompous mythical name. Prometheus was the god of fire, of life. Romulus and Remus were the founders of Rome and the sons of the god of war. I guess the filmmakers tried to tell us that the new movie's name is in reference to the station that would spawn the next level of evolution for humans. The start of a new world for humanity. That's way too deep for this movie. The sheer volume of nostalgia bait just became silly at a certain point. Nostalgia works when it captures the essence of the original, not when you just parrot lines and copy scenes from the originals. And then the worst thing in this movie, by far, that alien hybrid monster thing. What the fuck? Now we've had a few weird hybrids in the previous movies, with hybrids like this, or this, or this, even this monstrosity, but none of them were as weak and awful as this one. This lanky, skinny thing is supposed to be scary? Supposed to be the next level of human evolution? Come on!
Fuck off.
Now that's a lot of negatives, and just before that I said that it wasn't a bad movie, right? So what gives? The movie was decently made in other respects. The claustrophobic atmosphere was there, and the practical approach to making some of the facehuggers and the xenomorphs worked really well. They looked awesome. We just didn't see enough of the xenomorphs. There couldn't have been more than 5 to 10 minutes of screen time for them. The back-to-basics approach in both story and production was refreshing. Both Prometheus and Alien Covenant tried to be philosophical and ask grandiose questions while being absolutely moronically stupid. This movie felt a bit like it hit the reset button. It didn't try to ask questions about the origins of life, where it all started and what the meaning of it all was. It connected the previous movies, albeit clumsily, and sort of brought it all back to a new starting point for new Alien movies going forward. The young actors all did a decent job. They felt like a younger, more naive bunch of workers compared to the grizzled crews we've seen in previous movies. It was a nice juxtaposition from the previous movies where the crew always felt like they'd seen it all, done it all, and were tired of everything and everyone's shit, resigned to their current lives, to this crew that had that hope of a better life beyond this current one. Rain was a good reset for the female lead. After Ripley, the female leads kept getting worse, with Daniels from Covenant being the most generic and forgettable female lead you could imagine. Rain felt more like a young Ripley. Andy was the star of the movie though. He was great as both the fragile childlike version as well as the more robotic take-charge emotionless version of the character. With all that out of the way, join me, your sidekick, as we journey to the Romulus station and the horrors that await us there. We start off in Jackson, a mining colony steeped in perpetual darkness. Our protagonist, Rain, is a young miner. She's stuck on this planet with her brother Andy. He's a childlike android that Rain has to look after. They get denied travel off-world, and after realizing that the company will never let them leave, some of their friends present them with an opportunity to escape this life. The only catch is that they need Andy to interface with the operating system on an abandoned space station floating in nearby orbit.
Need you, Andy. He's a Weyland-Yutani synthetic. He speaks mother. You can access a terminal on the ship to get us in and out without a fuss.
They're gonna steal cryo-sleep units for them to escape with. How did the station get there? Why is Weyland-Yutani not all over it? How can they just take off and go there without permission?
Don't know, don't care.
They learn that the station is going to crash into an asteroid belt soon, so now there's a ticking clock.
Belt's a bit closer than I thought. It's 36 hours, give or take.
Before the station crashes against the rings.
They get there and find the cryo units, but they don't have enough cryo juice for their trip, because of course they wouldn't.
Shit.
Oh, what's the problem?
Pods don't have enough fuel.
What do you mean?
They're loaded up for 3 years in stasis.
Must be a cryo depot nearby.
They go looking for the cryo batteries. They get to the batteries, and after removing the first one, the room goes into lockdown. Andy can't unlock the room since he doesn't have permission to. Rain is forced to go rescue them. She finds Rook, another android, and takes his chip to Andy. This chip upgrades Andy and gives him permission to unlock the room, but he needs to reboot first. While that's happening, we realize that the room is heating up, and it's filled with frozen facehuggers that are defrosting. And that's where shit gets real and things go sideways. They escape the room, and so do a bunch of facehuggers. One of them starts hugging the pilot girl, and they boot up Rook, the broken android. He does a bunch of exposition dumping.
Must complete the mission.
But your mission has failed.
You all die. You run. Get out.
What's gonna grow out of her?
They get the facehugger off of Pilot Girl's face, and then they turn on each other. Some of them escape back onto their ship. Pilot Girl gives birth to a xenomorph and in the process kicks the ship's controls. It spins out of control around the station and conveniently crashes into the loading bay on the other side of the station. Totally undamaged.
Nice.
Andy has a chat with Rook, and we get even more exposition dumping.
Your model was once the backbone of our colonization efforts.
This station was an R&D lab, and Andy needs to go get the black goo. It's all that matters. It's the goo of life. Andy, Rain, and Tyler start making their way toward the crashed ship. Meanwhile, douchebag cousin falls for the xenomorph, and pregnant girl runs away into the station. Andy won't open the door for her though, cause he sees the xenomorph is using her as bait.
Clever girl.
The xenomorph isn't very patient and takes pregnant girl. They finally get to the lab and get the black goo. Andy gives them assault rifles and they're off to the ship again. In the first corridor they reach, Tyler conveniently hears pregnant girl. She's a bit stuck. They get her down and Tyler is stung by a xenomorph. Andy falls down and convulses again, even though he said he's been upgraded by the new chip.
It's substantially updating my AI and it's mending my motor systems as we speak.
Rain decides that she can't leave Andy and goes back for him. Pregnant girl is conveniently left alone and she decides to inject herself with the black goo. Andy and Rain then play Colonial Marines, very nearly run out of ammo, and then swim through floating acid. They both then use the assault rifle with almost no ammo left to do this, 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 and even this. Thank God for plot armor ammo. They finally get back onto the ship. Pregnant girl gives birth, and as expected with the black goo, it's a bit of a mess. Her son thing goes from infant to adult in about 3 minutes and then terrorizes them. Andy gets slapped around and it's up to Rain to save the day. She pulls a Ripley and takes care of business. Rain and Andy are off to their new life. The end. It's by no means the worst movie in the franchise, and like I said, it sort of hits the reset button, which isn't a bad thing. Ridley Scott got too fancy for his own good with his last two outings, and this now gives the franchise new opportunities for growth and expansion. This back-to-basics approach was a very good idea. Unfortunately, like the last few Alien movies, this one suffers from a series of stupid decisions and incredible plot conveniences to move things forward. This isn't the smash hit that I was hoping it to be. It's not a bad movie, but it also wasn't great. At least it wasn't poisoned by modern-day politics to appease that mythical audience that no one seems to be able to find. It was moody, tense, scary, gory, and mostly a return to form for the franchise that got way too grandiose for its own good. Not a lot more you could ask for except less stupidity in the writing, but I'll take the small victories. Anywho, that's me signing off.